Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Lakewood City Council special meeting in Lakewood, Colorado on October 4th, 2021 at 7 p.m. For those of you that would like to participate this evening by telephone, you can dial 720-707-2699. Webinar ID this evening is 998-6958-5479. Pound, and the participant ID is pound 2452943958 with a double pound, *9 to request to speak, and *6 to unmute. You're more than welcome to raise your hand right now if you'd like. That's going to be *9, and we can make sure that you are in the queue, as I know some folks have wanted to pool their time as well. Like to make one quick comment that we will be without Councilors Vincent and Franks tonight. Councilor Franks had a previously scheduled trip, and as you know, this is normally a study session night, so she will not be with us. And Councilor Vincent had a family emergency, so we wish her and her family all of the best. So I would now ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Paul.
Here.
Abel.
Here.
Vincent. Beta.
Here.
Skilling.
Here.
Franks. Johnson.
Here.
LeBure.
Here.
Springsteen.
Here.
Harrison.
Here.
And we do have a quorum.
Great. All right. Well, now, if you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. We'll also have a moment of silent prayer. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. Okay, so next up, I just want to read item 4, statement of conflict of interest. All members of the City Council have the responsibility to comply with the terms of Charter 7.2B and excuse themselves from voting on any matter in which they determine they have a personal, financial, or business interest. The City Council is empowered by Charter 7.2B to agree by unanimous vote, excluding the member at issue, to excuse any member of the council from voting on a matter in which they determine such member has a personal, financial, or business interest. Okay, Mr. Clerk, item 5.
Yes, sir. That is going to be a proclamation recognizing October 2021 as National Cybersecurity Awareness Month.
Awesome. I'd like to welcome our Chief Information Officer, Alina Walters, and I believe Larissa Thomas, who is our Chief Information Security Officer. And also would like to wish Ms. Walters a happy birthday and thank you for joining us on your birthday tonight.
Well, thank you very much.
So with that, with your birthday, we will celebrate October 2021 National Cybersecurity Awareness Month. Whereas the City of Lakewood recognizes it has a vital role in identifying, protecting, and responding to cyber threats which may have significant impact to our individual and collective security and privacy. And whereas internet users and our information infrastructure face an increasing threat of malicious cyber attacks, significant financial and personal privacy losses due to identity theft and fraud. And whereas cybersecurity education and awareness are crucial for everyone, including large corporations, small businesses, financial institutions, schools, government agencies, the home user, and anyone who connects to the internet. And whereas monitoring your accounts, being conscientious of what you share online, keeping computer software up to date, creating unique passwords and changing them regularly, installing antivirus programs and firewalls, and using mobile devices safely are ways you can protect yourself from phishing, viruses, malware, financial loss, and loss of sensitive data. And whereas the federal government of the United States of America, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, the Multi-State Information Sharing and Analysis Center, and the National Security Alliance all recognize October as National Cyber Security Awareness Month. And all citizens are encouraged to visit their websites to learn more about cybersecurity and to put that knowledge into practice in their homes, schools, workplaces, and businesses. Now, therefore, on behalf of the City Council, the people of the City of Lakewood, I, Adam Paul, Mayor of the City of Lakewood, do by proclaim October 21 National Cybersecurity Awareness Month. And we'll virtually hand you over this proclamation. And thank you for being here. This is actually very, very important. And I know, as frustrated as it may be when we have to change our passwords, it is certainly for an important reason. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I really, all I wanted to say was thank you for recognizing the importance of cybersecurity. I know we've seen in the news all the different attacks that are happening everywhere. And I just hope that the information that you receive through our communication channels help you not just in your professional lives, but also personally. So tell everyone that you know how important it is to be cyber safe. And if anybody ever has any questions, we're happy to help out. So thank you very much, Mayor Paul. Really appreciate it.
Yep, you're welcome again, and thank you again for being here. And
thank you.
Your team does incredible work and does try to keep us and the infrastructure of the city safe. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, go enjoy. Mr. Clerk, item 6.
Item 6 is a proclamation for Code Enforcement Officer Appreciation Month.
Awesome. And tonight joining us, we have Miss Gail Spencer from our Code Enforcement Division. She is the coordinator. Here she is. Welcome. Nice to see you.
Good to see you all.
All right. So, Proclamation October 2021 Code Enforcement Officer Appreciation Month. Whereas Colorado code enforcement officials are dedicated, well-trained, and highly responsible individuals who are committed to improving neighborhoods in the course of their daily duties. And whereas dedicated officials support the safety, health, and welfare of citizens through the enforcement of building, zoning, housing, and fire safety codes and ordinances. And whereas the Colorado Association of Code Enforcement Officials, CACEO, provides valuable training to enhance the professionalism and consistency of Colorado's code enforcement efforts. And whereas for 3 decades, the dedicated members of the CACEO have been working closely with the state of Colorado to serve the people of Colorado. And whereas Lakewood's officers work together to improve the quality of life in the Lakewood community and throughout Colorado. Now, therefore, on behalf of the City Council of the people of the City of Lakewood, I, Adam Paul, Mayor of the City of Lakewood, by virtue of the authority vested in me, do by proclaim October 2021 Code Enforcement Officer Appreciation Month. And certainly thrilled to have you here. You and your team have a tremendously challenging job. You work closely with neighbors and property owners and deal with some tough situations. So we're certainly glad to have this opportunity to honor you, and would love to turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you, Mayor and City Councilors. Also, Kathy, the Chief, Division Chief Lohr, and Commander Pickard. Just want to say on behalf of the Code Enforcement team, which is Lead Officer Chris Barnes, Officer Juan Bonilla Acosta, Officer John Holmes, and Officer Mike Dawson, we all truly appreciate your recognition and support of the code enforcement profession. So thank you very much.
Great. Well, thank you. And I know we have a hard copy proclamation for you. So hope you can go in and enjoy your evening.
Thank you, Mayor and
right.
Councilors. Enjoy as well.
Great. Thank you. Okay, next up is general public comment. So this is the point in the meeting where the public is invited to address the city council on items that did not appear on the agenda. All comments should be directed to the city council. I ask that all persons calling in observe the same decorum of a city council meeting held in person in chambers. The clerk will go ahead and start to call on you. So if you'd like to raise your hand, even if it's for later on in the meeting, if you'd like to just raise your hand so you don't get missed, please press *9. When the clerk calls on you, press *6 to unmute and give us your name and address, or name and ward, and we'll start your 3 minutes. When you're to 30 seconds, you will hear, and then when your time is up, you will hear that again. So Mr. Clerk, let me get the timer ready. All right.
And Mr. Mayor, we had a typo on the participant ID. That should have just been a pound or a hashtag.
Okay.
Yeah, so I don't know if you want to reread it to everybody because we don't have any telephone callers right now.
Okay, so I will reread this and we'll give it a little bit of time. So if I'm not mistaken, the phone number is still accurate, 720-707-2699.
Yes, sir.
And the participant or the webinar ID is 998-6958-5479. And you'll press pound twice. And that should bring you into the meeting. So again, 720-707-2699, webinar ID 998-6958-5479, pound. Again, this is general public comment for this evening. And if you are having any trouble, please feel free to email paul@lakewood.org. Go ahead.
It's going to be Joshua Comden.
All right, Mr. Comden, good evening. Name and address or name and ward for the record, and we'll get you started, please.
Yeah, I am Ward 1, Joshua Comden. Just to note that in the agenda, the Zoom link was for the wrong meeting or something, but the number is correct. So I had to go in through the Zoom channel and then type in the number instead of the Zoom link. So if anyone's listening and having that issue, there's that.
Thank you.
So I guess, yeah, I'm just going to call about my usual thing of trying to get a civilian review board for the Lakewood Police Department. I just think it would be something that would be very useful. I mean, it seems like the police department has a lot of responsibility on other things that it doesn't necessarily need to take responsibility on. Correct me if I'm wrong, but is the homelessness navigator through the Lakewood Police Department? I feel like that would be should be more like a social services sort of thing. And one other just side note, I just couldn't figure out how to send in I guess a request for repair at a park. There's a light out at one of the pavilions that I go to, and I was trying to search the website and I couldn't figure out who I email about that. I'm not trying to get anyone in trouble here, but I just got myself lost on the website. That'd be very nice to know. So thank you.
You betcha. And we'll circle back with that information. Next up.
Yes, we have caller ending 4375.
Good evening, caller 4375. If you give us your name and address or ward, we'll get you started. You can go ahead and unmute *6. Good evening.
Hi there.
Hi.
Good evening. Hi, my name is Tess Darty, and I'm calling because there was an exchange on Twitter between the Lakewood Police Department and some people that were raising concerns about the behavior. And on one of them, they had put up a bunch of headlines. One said Lakewood police killed a man in a burning basement. 3 officers gave differing accounts of what happened. The other one says they did not give him a chance. And then it also had in the tweet, it had based on population, a Black person was 10.7 times as likely and a Latinx person was 0.6 times as likely to be killed by police as a white person in Lakewood from 2013 to 2020. And then in response, the Lakewood police put a meme that had a guy in a cowboy hat and it said hot take in response to that. So I don't really know if there's any excuse to be making fun of someone who was killed in a basement and was called for a mental health issue. And I'm just a little confused about why in any world the Lakewood police would think that that was an appropriate way to respond to this tweet. So I agree with the previous caller that we desperately need a citizen review board. Thank you.
Okay. So again, for those folks that are in the queue, this is general public comment. So if you want to raise your hand, you can press *9. Mr. Clerk, next.
Yes, it'll be Lenore Hershkovitz.
All right. Good evening, Lenore. If you give us your name and address or ward, we'll get you going.
Yes, Lenore Hershkovitz, Ward 1. After reading the unopposed temporary restraining order from the CCU lawsuit, I was very concerned that the court would never learn about the inaccurate assertions contained in the pleading. But then I learned that there was a legal remedy available called a motion to intervene. Last week, I filed this document in Jefferson County District Court. At this point, I don't know if my motion has been granted, but I do know the judge will read the factual information provided. Had the city's attorney's office chosen to oppose CCU's request for a temporary restraining order, there wouldn't have been any reason to file this motion. It seems that repeatedly constituents are placed in a position where they have to take legal action to protect their neighborhoods. Our city council is supposed to represent us and address our concerns. Staff, in turn, is supposed to take direction from city council. If staff is concerned about the enforceability of an ordinance, they should work with council to modify and strengthen the proposal rather than negate it. Once an ordinance is passed, it should be supported and enforced. When lawsuits are filed, how about advocating for the neighborhoods and the best interest of the citizens? Unfortunately, this didn't happen to the case of Wright Street, Westland, or White Fence Farm, to just name 3. The public is repeatedly told at council meetings that you're listening to our concerns. Well, actions speak louder than words, and on many important issues, that action has been lacking. Hopefully, moving forward with CCU, the city will provide a vigorous defense and start protecting our neighborhood from further university incursions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So next up, let me get this reset here. All right.
Okay, it looks like call in user 2.
Okay, call in user 2. Good evening. If you give us your name and address or ward, we'll get you going.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
This is Michelangelo. How you doing? I'm in Ward 3.
Great. Welcome.
I have extreme issues with the individual murdering that person who was under his stairs cowering from him being the lead in the mental health team that you have proposed to handle my community. I also have extreme issues with your problems with me having an issue with me volunteering for my community. I have to go miles and miles away to do the volunteer work that I do normally for my community. I'd like to know why in the hell the law enforcement agency in this community is so corrupt and why the city council will do absolutely not one thing to fix it. Mayor Adam Paul, I think your seat needs to be vacated. Kathy, you should be supervising your bitches. Goodbye.
right. So next up this evening,
John Klaus.
Mr. Klaus, name and address or name and ward, please.
Hi, this is John Kloss again, calling from Ward 1. Thank you, Mayor, esteemed members of council, and Charlie. I was pretty relieved to see on the agenda this evening that there was a statement of conflict of interest, but based on Charlie's smug look, I'm guessing it's not due to the reason I'm calling. Everybody on council knows that he's actively dating someone who's running for city council. Everyone on city staff knows that he's dating someone running for city council. It's been made clear through public records requests that he was the deciding vote to get his girlfriend on the Lakewood Planning Commission. Why are rules being put in place if we're not going to enforce them? Why do people sign forms around conflicts of interest if it's not being enforced? It's gone from a joke to something pretty frustrating. And yeah, you're city council, so I only hope that you all would finally do something. Thank you.
Okay, next up, please.
Last four is 7519.
All right, caller 7519. Give us your name and address or ward. We'll start.
Hi, this is David Hagan. It's good to hear your voices. Well, some of you. I cannot believe what Tess said about 10.7 times more likely to be killed by a cop in Lakewood if you're black. I think the what is it? It's like 2.5 is the average for the country, which is horrible. But 10.7, that's got to be one of the worst in the entire country. I was trying to figure it out before I got called. Unfortunately, I'm up right now and I haven't so far. But well, Adam Paul, you should be proud. You're number one in something. You know, anybody with two first names, you usually got to worry about them. I'm floored. I can't even remember what I was going to talk about now that I 10.7 times. Oh, that Twitter. Wow. Killing somebody in a basement. Was the basement was on fire, I believe, or something like that? I don't know. But so, and they're going to joke about it. And then the response they just gave about me, like, come on now. It's like, just come up with something. Jesus Christ, stop lying. Accountability needs to come from the citizens. You would not let a rapist judge another rapist for committing rape. Why are you letting a cop judge another cop for when they make a mistake or when they do something vile or a criminal? It doesn't make any sense. It's the only thing in the entire country that they can do a terrible job and they can continue to get more funding. It's like, oh, we need more funding. There's a bunch of laws being broken and criminals and blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, I thought you were the police chief. You're going to do better. No, you're not doing any better. Well, here's some more money so you can do worse and worse and worse. Get your guys' stuff in order, man. Jesus Christ. 10.7. I'm floored. 10.7. I'll say that again. 10.7. Wow.
Okay. Next up, Mr. Clerk.
Call in user 3.
All right, user 3, give us your name and address or name and ward. We'll get you going.
Hi, this is Misty. I'm in Ward 3. Hello?
Yeah, go ahead. Okay, looks like they hung up. Anybody else for public comment? All right, seeing none, I'm going to close public comment. Mr. Comden, you should be able to go to requestlakewood.org and have that. And there's actually a really good app that you can just mark it and drop it in. So please go ahead and do that if you wish. And then, if anybody would like to sit down and talk about our community action team and our different co-responders, I'd be happy to have that conversation. And sadly, I know some of the callers this evening aren't Lakewood residents, and they're being fueled by Councilor Springsteen to call in. And the sad part is somebody did lose their life, and we take these very seriously, and we certainly have respect for the family and all those who are involved, and it's not a joke. And the fact that somebody did put out that you were 9 or 10 times more likely to be killed by an African American is not factual. And I had that same phone call with the folks who put that out, and they realized that their facts weren't accurate. That's never even happened in the recollection of our history. So I think if we want to have honest communications and conversations, let's talk about the issues. Let's take the time to understand the mental health calls, and let's try to be productive in these conversations. But encouraging folks to call in and giving them bad or misinformation just isn't prudent to these conversations. So Councillor Abel, you were referenced during public comment. I'll go to you. Councillor Springsteen, you can wait till general business or your comments.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Klaus has been rather frequent with his largely spurious and inaccurate comments. There was no tie on City Council to break when Ms. Kentner was nominated. And we all vote in concert all at one time. And as far as the screening committee goes, there was a tie there. Barb Franks broke it after about 10 minutes of going through her notes and some private deliberation on her part. Also, this fellow sent me an email about a week or 10 days ago. The first 5 words of it were, "I'm glad your wife died." That was followed by some rather nasty remarks about my character. But to say, "I'm glad your wife died," what kind of person does that? And what kind of candidate condones it? And Mayor, I think I see some of your fingerprints on this issue as well. Thank you.
That's an unfortunate allegation, but thank you. Okay, so next up we have ordinance. Let's see. I think, there's no executive report. So Mr. Clerk, please go ahead and read in item 9.
Item 9 is Ordinance O-2021-25, creating Chapter 14.28 of the City of Lakewood, Colorado Municipal Code, regulating metropolitan districts.
All right, I'm going to open the public hearing, and I'm also going to, because I know that there's some public comment and there's been some amendments. So I would love to have, if folks have amendments, I know Mayor Pro Tem Skilling has brought forth. If you want to maybe just talk in high level before we go to public comment about what the potential amendments that are being proposed, that way folks who are calling in may be able to address those as well. So Mayor Pro Tem.
Sure. Thanks, Mayor. So there was a series of amendments. It's 6 in total that were emailed to all of council. So all of council has that. And I also believe that the city has that. And we might be able to put that up during our discussions when we have them, when the item comes up. It has to do with one of them, or 2 of them have to do with having city council approve some things rather than the city manager approve some things, as is in the proposed ordinance, so that it leans heavier on city council doing some of these administrative approvals. There is also some language in there that when we had advocated to the legislature about some of the, Councillor Abel, Councillor Gutwein were involved in that, when we had transmitted some of our suggestions to the state. Some of that language is in here as well. There's also a proposal to make it so that the seller has to make remarks on an MLS listing, regardless of whether MLS actually has a formal box for it. They could make those disclosures in the remarks. That's the gist of it, of the big ones. But we can get into each of those 6 as we go through the ordinance itself.
Great. Councillor Beta, amendments?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I'm going to propose an amendment as well, which would have the effect of deleting the entire body of this proposed legislation and substituting it with a ban against the institution of all further metro districts for residential purposes. So that is going to be on the table tonight as well.
Great. Anybody else? And I would just ask legal, based upon what Councilor Bita has stated, to what that would look like. And I would imagine we'd want to do that first. That way, if that passes or not, that depends upon where we go for the rest of the evening. So while we open up public comment in regards to Ordinance 2021-25, be great if we could potentially look at what that motion would be for Councilor Bita. And we do have a request for pooling. We allow up to 10 minutes when there are 3 folks who have signed up to participate. So if you are one of the 3, I see Miss Morgan, there should be 2 others who have signed up to allow Mr. Henderson 10 minutes. If you are in the queue, please raise your hand so I can see you.
And Mr. Mayor, just so you know, Carol Baum is trying to get logged in. As far as Lynn Judson, I have not seen her.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and count her, and then looks like 4375 also has their hand raised for pooling. So again, just to be clear, this is for pooling of time for Ordinance 2021-25. Okay, so we'll take Miss Morgan, the last 3 of 4375, and then you said Miss Baum is calling in, so we'll go ahead and add Miss Baum. All right. With that, Mr. Henderson, your name and address, and we'll start your 10 minutes.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yep, name and address, and we'll get you going.
Thank you so much. John Henderson, Westport Island, Maine, former resident at Solterra. Thank you again to the residents who are willing to share their time. I appreciate that, and I'll try to make it worthwhile. The first thing I wanted to talk about is our activity at the state legislature. I'm working with a group of citizens named the Colorado. Hold on just a minute. I need to turn off my phone. Okay. No, that didn't work. I apologize for that. Working with a group of citizens, Coloradans for Metro District Reform, we recently worked on legislation in front of the 2021 legislature and had the experience of responding to a bill, an industry bill, the only bill that was proposed. As a result of that experience, a couple things were clear. Number one, this is a big problem statewide. Number two, the legislators are beginning to understand that and recognize the stakes that are involved and take responsibility for it. In 1982, the legislature passed the legislation which resulted in the current statutes that have presented and at least allowed so many of the abuses. $30,000. If you don't hear anything else I say, $30,000. That's the number, that's the amount of money that the Special District Association, the Colorado Builders Association, and builders associations across the country have identified as the average cost of infrastructure. The Metro District financing has only one purpose. That was conceded at the ULI conference 2 years ago by the industry spokesperson. It has only one purpose. That is to repay the cost of infrastructure, which on average is $30,000 per lot. And coincidentally, in Solterra, it was about $33,000, $34,000 per lot. We have this massive Metro District industrial complex of lawyers, accountants, experts, managers. We're spending billions of dollars in taxes, and we're spending millions of dollars in supporting this infrastructure just to repay $30,000 in infrastructure per lot. What did we do before Metro District legislation in 1982? We did what is being done throughout most of the rest of the country. We paid for it through the cost of the lot. So the question is, why did this happen? They helped answer it at the ULI conference. The industry, the development industry, was having a tough time financially, and they wanted to pass the risk of their loss onto the taxpayers. And they did. And not only that, but they created a huge profit center that never existed before. So the point of this little commentary first is, this is a state problem, a statewide issue, and we're doing everything we can again this year to get the state to clean it up. And what we're asking in many jurisdictions, and I will ask you to consider tonight, is putting further Metro District development in residential areas on hold, basically banning it until the state fixes this problem. You all don't have the resources, you don't have the manpower, person power, you don't have the financial resources, and quite frankly, they saddled you with these issues, and now they're asking you to fix the problem. And with respect to the state legislators, the problem started there, and that's where the solution has to start. And I think it will. But at any rate, that's our first request, is that you essentially stop Metro District financing for residential development until we get this right. And to be fair, the business community deserves that certainty. They deserve to know what the rules are. Longmont prohibits Metro District financing for residential development, and they're still building just like everybody else is. Second point I want to make, and this goes to one of the critical issues in the proposed ordinance. I didn't believe it the first time I heard it, when somebody told me that the developer had been telling residents in Solterra that they could not vote or serve on the board until after the development was 75% built out. That was a plain falsehood. The statute says quite clearly, as soon as you buy property, you have a right to vote and serve on the board. And it wasn't until we raised the issue through the recall effort that people finally began to understand they had a right. We heard it, people say, well, when we were knocking on doors for the recall, people said, well, they told us we couldn't serve until it was built out 75%. At meetings during the recall, they said, well, we can't do this because they told us we can't build out to 75%. This ordinance that you're proposing promotes that very, there's no other word for it, that very lie. You're saying in this ordinance that the developer does not have an obligation to turn the board into a resident-controlled board until after it's built out some percent. You're not saying anywhere in this ordinance what should be said, what should be put in every meeting agenda, and that is you as the resident have a right to serve on the board, you have a right to vote. Here is the self-nomination form, and as soon as you file that, we will make arrangements to have your appointment or election. That's not in the ordinance. And instead, what you're putting in the ordinance is perpetuating that lie that you have to wait until it's built out before you can control the board. The developer has no more right to serve on that board than they have a right to serve on your city council. With respect to the evaluation of this ordinance, I've shared with you some details on the analysis. I'd ask those be made part of the record. And to be sure, there are some very good things. There was a tremendous effort here. There are some very good things in the bill, but there are also some very bad things. Can it be fixed? Absolutely. Can we make it right? Can we do it? Can we get it right? Absolutely. But we're not there yet. And quite honestly, I would respectfully suggest take what you have now, hold on to it. Let's let the legislature do what they need to do to fix this and get it right, give you all the support that you need to finish the job and keep working, because all that you've done is important. It needs to be pursued, but we're not there yet. And we'd ask that you put a hold on things until we can get the state to fix it. Thank you so much. Great to see you all again, and best wishes.
Great, thank you. Right, so we will continue with public comment on item 9, ordinance 2021-25. Mr. Clerk.
Last four of 5627.
Good evening, 5627. If you unmute, give us your name and address, we'll get you going.
Hello, this is Lynn Judson. I just wanted to verify that I was giving my time to John Henderson.
Yes,
who
ma'am.
just spoke. So I'm sorry, I didn't know how to get into the meeting, so I was trying to verify that for you.
We got
Thank
you. Yep, thank you. All right, next.
5552.
All right, 5552. If you please unmute, give us your name and address, we'll get you going.
Hello, my name is J.D. LeBeau. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Great. Former member of Solterra, had to move to Castle Pines North to avoid the massive tax resident increase that I could not afford. I appreciate you guys continuing talking about this. It's become quite the quagmire for a lot of regular citizens to try to unravel a lot of the misunderstandings and items that are going before us. So I really do appreciate you. I wanted to give you kudos for that. I'm calling merely because I found myself really passionate about trying to expose abuse. On one hand, I understand developers wanting to make money off of their endeavors. Who's to blame them for that? I think that's a valid thing to do. On the other hand, I think it's a different thing to be extorting residents who come in under the guise of low-income homes at $400,000 to $500,000 and then don't recognize that they have to pay probably 2% taxes on top of that. Now, if they go and they do their history, yeah, they can figure that out. But the fact remains that you're double and sometimes triple paying for your infrastructure costs under the guise of metro districts. And developers want the rest of the community, you all as well, to believe that this is a funding mechanism for them to be able to afford building homes, of which each city will say, well, yes, we need to build homes because we have people coming into our communities. Well, then the developer says, help us so that we can do it easier. And really what that is a guise for them to make 2 to 3 times more amount of money at the residents' and citizens' expense. So I continue to appreciate what you guys are doing. You're exposing. Thank you, Councilman Beta, for, I hope I said that right, Beta. I always get that wrong. I'm sorry about that. For proposing a halt to residential metro districts. I don't believe it is the mechanism for building homes for people to live. I thank you for your time. Hope you have a great night.
Thank you. All right. Anybody else wish to address council on ordinance 2021-25?
Looks like we have a 4375.
That was included in the pooling?
Yes, but that was incorrect. Lynn Judson was on a different phone number.
Okay.
So
All right, 4375, name and address, please, and we'll get you going on ordinance 2021-25.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great, thanks. Hi, this is Tess, and I just wanted
Could
to
I
comment
please have
on...
your address for this public hearing, please?
No, I don't want to give my address. That's just kind of weird to give an address. I don't actually have to do that.
Okay.
So I just wanted to call and support the previous caller that you know, in the Denver area we're seeing kind of unfettered development, and it's not that that I don't think most people are against development unless they're just trying to keep out certain groups of people. But I think many of us are concerned with the kind of development that is happening, and what we're seeing is actually quite alarming in terms of how it compares to the 2008 housing crisis, because developers are coming in and they're allowed to borrow against the projected income that they're going to gain from the new development. And so, say they come in and they raise the rent in an area, or raise the rent of an apartment from what it was previously. Say they tore down, they build a new one, and now it's twice the rent. They're then allowed to borrow against that projected income rather than the actual income, whether or not they have filled those apartments or the housing. And then they're actually they're then trading it on Wall Street. And so there are these huge corporate development companies that are literally bubbling us up to have 2008 look like a birthday party. And so, you know, I think that being really careful about Denver has been made a playground for developers. And it's not that many of us are anti-development, it's that we are just concerned with the kind of development. The federal government using the AMI to, contend that they're providing affordable housing is just a farce. And so I think the fact that you guys are looking at it carefully is really important.
Okay, thank you. All right, anybody else wish to speak on metro districts? Okay, we'll go ahead and close public comment. 3306 just came in right when I was closing.
Yeah, and I also got an 0467.
Okay.
So we'll do 3306 first.
Okay. 3306. Ordinance 2021-25. Name and address or ward, please. Metro districts.
Yes.
Yeah, hi.
Hello?
Hello.
Hello? I thought I was going to speak.
You're speaking.
Hello?
Yeah, I also got an 0467.
You need to turn off one of your devices, please. You're getting some reverberating background noise.
Oh, okay. 3306. My name is Betty Sealand. I live at 47 Flower Street, Lakewood. I'm in Ward 1. And this evening, I am speaking for the League of Women Voters of Jefferson County. The League of Women Voters of Jefferson County does support the adoption of Ordinance 2021-25, creating Chapter 14.28 of the City of Lakewood, Colorado Municipal Code regulating metropolitan districts. In February 2021, members of the JEFCO League reviewed local government structures and responsibilities with a focus on special districts. They reaffirmed their positions regarding local government entities, including special districts. First of all, we believe that special districts should be more difficult to form and to be consolidated, dissolved, and are multi-purpose in nature whenever possible. Chapter 1428 requires detailed information from applicants, which allows the city to make informed decisions regarding the establishment of a metropolitan district. It sets standards and requirements to be met before approval is given.
The League also supports procedures and practices for special districts which ensure accountability, representativeness, and openness. The ordinance provides the districts shall provide a publicly accessible website, and our understanding is that a majority of the board seats shall be timely transferred to the end users. Notices of elections is required, as well as information about the nomination process. And no district with control over the finances of another district shall be approved. The League also supports policies that promote fiscal responsibility and transparency. The financial accountability of special districts should be improved and mill levies limited. The ordinance requires that a disclosure document explaining the costs and benefits of owning property in the district shall be made available. A maximum initial debt amount shall be established. The maximum initial debt, the maximum debt mill levy, and the maximum debt mill levy duration must all be disclosed, and such maximums shall be established in the service plan or the IGA. Finally, the League believes that guidance and supervision from a central agency is desirable.
All right, your time is up.
Requires that districts use eminent domain use should be required approval by City Council, and that all districts located wholly or partially in the city, regardless of when formed, shall submit various.
Okay, I'm gonna ask you to wrap. Sorry to interrupt. I'm gonna ask you to wrap it up. I will say that, and I will say we did receive your letter, and that is part of the record for this evening. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. I just received a call from a constituent, and the volume on Channel 8 is down so low, people are having a hard time hearing it.
Okay.
I don't know if there's some way that we can remediate that, please.
We'll certainly have our folks look into it as we're moving forward.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, Mr. Clerk, we will continue the public hearing on Ordinance 2021-25. Anybody else wish to speak on this topic? If so, please raise your hand, *9. Okay, we'll go ahead and close public comment. I will also make note that Mr. Henderson, I believe everybody's information that was sent in is in the record. There were 3 comments on Lakewood Speaks, 2 against and 1 for. And of course, we heard from the League of Women Voters. I would now ask if it's okay to have Mr. Hutchison give us a quick kind of update as to how we got here, and then we can move into the city attorney and Councilor Bita's requested motion. Good evening, Mr. Hutchison.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, City Council. As you know, this has been a lengthy process, many steps and much material, so I won't rehash a lot. But just to give those who may not be familiar with how much effort you have put in, the public has already put in, I'll outline a few things. In addition to tonight's opportunity for public comment, there have been 6 other formal public meetings that involved all or part of the City Council. 3 of those were the ad hoc City Council Development Dialogue Committee in 2020, and then 3 City Council study sessions in 2021. And as I mentioned, there was other briefing material that was associated with some of those activities. There are a number of key themes, some of which have already been mentioned tonight. And in tonight's packet, there were some summaries that identified some of the responses to those key things that are contained within the ordinance. Those certainly weren't comprehensive, but hopefully they were helpful. And those were developed after the ordinance. And the ordinance, of course, was developed by city staff based on City Council's discussions. And that city staff development included review, of course, by the city attorney's office, which is normal. The packet that you have tonight, which includes the ordinance and the other material that I just mentioned, the summaries, was published, I believe, online on September 13th. So with that, I will not go into any detail. I'm sure there'll be plenty of that discussion, but thank you for the opportunity to introduce the topic.
Great. Mr. Hutchison, thank you. And we certainly have a great team of staff folks with us tonight to answer any questions. So Mr. Dortek, do you want to tackle Councilor Bita's motion, please?
Thank you, Mayor. And I do have a couple comments to make. And I want to start off by saying my concerns are the following. That there's not been any time to review under our charter whether or not we can ban metro districts. I know it was a little bit talked about prior to, but what was looked at was, okay, how can we enact this ordinance, basically limiting or otherwise putting conditions on metro districts. And I know Longmont did do this, but I can't sit here and tell you whether or not Longmont's code or charter has significant differences from Lakewood's code or charter. And the last thing we want to do is create something that doesn't comply with our code or charter. To sort of piggyback on that, one of the rules of the city attorney's office is to advise on what's the best way to enact what city council wants to do. And we haven't had the time, and there's no aspersion cast on this, but we haven't had the time to give advice on if city council wants there to be a ban, what's the best way to create language that's going to be the most legally defensible language if there is a ban. The second thing I'd want to sort of note is that because banning was not mentioned as part of the original first reading, there may be an issue with Charter Article 7.4 concerning our procedures. There may not be notice to persons who may want to give public comment on that specific course of action. Now, I do note that a lot of people did call in and give comment on the idea of banning, but there may be others who have other comments who did not know that that was a potential outcome. So those are the two concerns I have going forward. I would suggest that the best course of action would be to delay that amendment, if that's the amendment that wants to be put forward, and have a second reading or another reading of an ordinance with that amendment in it, with the public having notice, and with the city attorney's office and other staff being able to weigh in on the best potential language to be used for that ordinance. Thanks.
Yeah, Mr. Dortek. So, but to add a little bit more context, so during the study session, the agreement was that there would be ability, if folks did not want to see these go forward, that we would have an ability tonight to make that into play. So I guess the motion could be a motion to direct staff to draft legislation to ban metro districts, and I certainly, or at least a moratorium until more work is done on this subject.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yep.
If council were to direct staff or want to make an amendment to the ordinance in front of you regarding an outright ban, I think staff would probably need some time to, if that were direction, to get the language right. And the direction could be received tonight. Staff could come back and provide that in a more comprehensive way than I know Councilmember Bita provided some verbiage via email through the clerk's office. I'm not sure staff wouldn't want a little more meat to that ban if that were council's direction.
Councilor Bita.
Thank you, Mayor. So, a couple of things. First of all, we went through this same little exercise here a couple of months ago, and I was told by legal counsel that my motion was out of order. I followed up shortly after that with our legal staff and pointed out to them Robert's Rules of Orders, as well as some other things that supported my motion. And I was told that they apologized, that it was a mistake by council, and they apologized. I thought about making that making that whole thing public, but I didn't feel like doing it because I didn't want to really embarrass anybody. I figured let's put it behind us and move on. Well, it seems like we haven't learned anything from that, because here we are again. So I'm going to put it out there. And here's the thing. It's right there in the staff memo, as was mentioned earlier, let me see, it's down towards the bottom of the first page. It says one of the committee's recommendations was for the city council to consider whether to prohibit creation of additional metropolitan districts within Lakewood. The consensus of council was to first proceed with the development of a proposed metropolitan district ordinance. It's right in the memo. And I will tell you that I brought this up at every meeting that I've been to, every committee meeting. I've said the same thing. Let's discuss first whether we're going to ban these, whether we want these in Lakewood, before we invest the time and the energy of our staff to draft an ordinance that may ultimately be defeated. Well, that was the answer I got. Well, let's draft it anyway, and then we'll talk about it when the time is right. Well, guess what? The time's over. We've been fooling around with this for 2 years now. But now is the time. And I will tell you that under Robert's Rules of Order, page 50, paragraph E, where it talks about sticking to the subject, the germaneness issue. It says any amendment proposed must in some way involve the same question raised by the motion it amends. We're going to have a motion here to adopt this ordinance, and I'm going to have a motion to instead change the language to prohibit these metro districts altogether. I don't know how anybody can argue with a straight face that that's not germane. Now, if our staff did not understand this, if for some reason they didn't pay attention to what was going on and they haven't provided proper notice, then that's a whole different problem. And if council is telling us that the notice was not properly given, then this whole thing is going to have to be set over and proper notice given. I don't know that. I don't have control over the notice. The notice is given by our staff. So I'm going to leave that to council, whether it's proper or not. But as far as it being germane, you bet it's germane. As far as council and everybody else being on notice that this was going to come up, you bet they have. So unless there's no notice, unless the notice was defective for some reason by inadvertently, then I think we're in a position to go forward and have my motion discussed as part of the entire discussion. That's
So
all.
please go ahead and make your motion.
And I'm willing to accept friendly amendments to the language because I understand what was said about maybe we need to have a little bit more substance, a little more meat to the language of this, and that's fine. I'm willing to do that. But basically, the motion is, and I have a whole. I'm giving you the motion now just for point of reference, but I do have some statements I want to make in preference to the motion, and I'll save that for now. But when it comes time to make the motion, I do have some comments that are very pertinent to this whole issue. So the motion would be, I hereby move that the creation and approval of all future residential metropolitan districts within the confines of the city of Lakewood be banned.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yeah, I have discussion.
Okay, Councilor Abel, your hand is up. Councilor Johnson, your hand is up.
I appreciate all the hard work that went into crafting this ordinance and all the hard work that Jay Hutchison put into trying to get the state to take a more reasonable position on these things. And he did word it very well. I appreciate also the amendments that Mayor Pro Tem Skilling offered. They're well put together. They carry the intent of what came out of our study session. However, these districts are not necessary. Lakewood has more of them than anyone. When we raise the issue of special districts, we're told, oh no, that includes the fire district. No, that doesn't. This is titled, what, 32 districts? These are developer districts we're talking about, not any other special district. I think we can all see from the Channel 9 or the Rocky Mount, Denver Post articles by David Magoya on the mess that's been created all across this part of Colorado by these special districts. You can't ignore the outcome, and you can't ignore the fact that these are not being done out of the goodness of developers' hearts. They see a mechanism that will feed their bottom line, and they're doing it. It also is much too easy for us to let Lakewood grow if we're not footing the bill for the infrastructure that's required. We can just sit back and watch it all become asphalt and concrete. We don't want to do that, and I hope that none of this suggestions of delay or impropriety of this vote tonight come from the fact that folks have counted heads and see a result they don't like. But I'm ready to move forward with this thing, and we don't need special districts. We need more adherence to the vision of our own community. Thank you.
Councilor Johnson.
Thank you. I appreciate all the kudos that Councilor Abel gave. I too have a few comments I would like to make. For issues as serious as metro districts and frankly short-term rentals, we need to start as a council, as an elected body, by asking a few questions, frankly. How will metro districts affect the current residents? Is there a cost to current residents? Why is this good for Lakewood in its entirety? And really, it's important to know who wants metro districts, who is pushing this. That tells you a lot. There is always money involved in everything government-wise. We all know that. Who is pushing this and how much estimated money is on the table? And I'm curious, is there any money on the table now that anybody is aware of? Also, I'd like to know, have metro districts or their representatives donated to any past or current elected officials or candidates? Mayor, you've been reading the conflict of interest, and if anybody has gotten money from metro districts, you know who you are, then you need to recuse yourself from this vote. As Mr. Henderson said, metro districts are a matter of statewide concern. The legislature created them, and they need to repair them. What we are currently involved in is having a patchwork quilt throughout the state, and that just doesn't make sense. This needs to be tabled. It needs to be put on a moratorium, if you will. And just a couple more things. I too am really kind of concerned that throughout the 10 years that I've been on city council, when something comes up for a vote, we will have an ordinance that gives guidelines and allows it to happen. But there is never another ordinance that offsets that if we actually want to have that or not. And things need to be voted on an up or down vote to begin with. Also, I have found, and it's something that all of us need to be aware of. Anytime legislation is passed or ordinances are passed of this nature, unless we absolutely know the long-term consequences, it is very hard to back out or to delete something that's on the books. And frankly, it takes years of problems and people complaining of what that effect has been. So I too would like to see us stop this now. And also the elephant that's in the room here. We all know what the vote count is tonight. And anything that is a tie vote goes down. I am becoming more and more cynical while I sit on city council, frankly, of some of the reasons why things are being done. I will also be voting to ban metro districts right now until the legislature cleans up this mess that they started. Thank you.
Councilor Bida.
Thank you. So again, in support of my motion and the reasons that I think we should have a ban are several. First of all, metro districts have been the vehicle of abuse of residents and taxpayers for years. We have our own case in point in Solterra, but these abuses go back all the way to Castle Pines North in Douglas County in the late 1980s and early 1990s, when many residents lost their homes. We had one of our constituents just called in tonight and verified that very thing. He was one of the residents of North Castle Pines and was, I think he said he had to sell his home because of the huge debt that was there. The reasons are many and complex, but the results are real. A strict and enforceable regulatory framework is needed statewide, but the state legislature so far has failed to enact such legislation, presumably due to heavy lobbying pressure from the developer and metro district lobbies. They did address the issue this last session with very minor changes, which still leave the industry largely unregulated. Hence, the city now is trying to further plug those holes by this legislation. This legislation benefits only developers, not the citizens whom we serve, and certainly not the city as a whole. So that's reason number one. Metro districts have been a vehicle of abuse for many years. Reason number two, what is the value to the city of these metro districts? I have heard very little during the past 2 years that justify these districts as a benefit to the city, yet they are a constant source of conflict. They take an inordinate amount of time of staff time and council time. One only has to look at the numerous meetings we have had with the Development Dialogue Committee, the study sessions with council, and all of the time that our staff has had to spend associated with those meetings. So secondly, what is the value to the city of these metro districts? I submit there's none. Third reason, to pass meaningful and enforceable legislation is difficult and complex, if not impossible. It is not for the local municipalities to regulate these districts because the local municipalities like Lakewood have neither the time, the resources, nor the expertise to do so. This is a job for the state, which, by the way, is the one who created these districts and therefore the problem in the first place. Tonight we have at the 11th hour proposals to try and prop up this legislation to plug the holes, if you will, but it is too little, too late. Any legislation passed by this body will, by necessity, be superficial at best and will easily be circumvented by the districts and the developers. This is evidenced by the fact that this council has been dealing with this issue for several years and is yet to develop satisfactory legislation that many of us on council have any confidence with. So, third reason, again, is that passing meaningful legislation to deal with this problem is difficult, complex, and nearly impossible. Fourth reason to ban is, and maybe the strongest one of all, is this. Our residents have spoken out loud and clear almost unanimously against this ordinance and have urged us to ban these metro districts in the future. Some of our most well-informed and articulate citizens and residents have once again spoken out tonight on Lakewood Speaks and through their individual emails against these abusive and potentially corrupt districts. Those few in support fail to answer the most fundamental question, though: how do they benefit Lakewood? So for these reasons, and because this action is necessary and proper to provide for the safety, preserve the health, and promote the prosperity of the city of Lakewood and its citizens, and rather than continue to entertain hollow, unenforceable legislation that only serves to deceive our citizens and future citizens, that there are now adequate guardrails in place, I move as I previously stated. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Skilling.
Yep, 2 points. First, I would love to hear from Councilor Johnson what nefarious actions we're up to tonight that makes you so cynical about tonight's vote and the vote count. That would be number one. I'm not going to just let that slide. So I would like to hear what plan is afoot tonight after 2 years of working on this. Number two, we did not hear, I believe, from a unanimous, large outpouring of support one way or another from the community. What did we have? 3 Lakewood Speaks comments, a handful of callers. And you know how I know what the pulse is because I've been chairing the committees for the past 2 years that have been dealing with this issue. If council doesn't like a district that's in front of it, if they say, you know what, that project is too big, too vast, and rife for abuse, then you deny it. Plain and simple. If you like it, and there are success examples in Lakewood, ask Doug Alanowitz. I believe it was his project, maybe it was the Westline project, where they used this vehicle. And guess what? That's a product that every single counselor, they can correct me if I'm wrong, has supported the idea of affordable housing, of different products, of not gentrifying, of not pricing people out of the city. So there's a success story. So if you dislike every Solterra in the world, great, decline it. Deny their application. Fine. This ordinance allows that. If you don't like the modification, deny it. But there are good things that could come out of this. Deny every single one of them in the future. Fine. But why on earth would you just prohibit them outright and take that tool out of your toolbox? It doesn't make a lot of sense, and it doesn't square with all of the work that people have done on this. To try to square it up with the residents we've heard, they're largely in my district. They're in my ward, as you all know. I know the abuses of what people have alleged from Solterra. A lot of that is in here. A lot of it. To make sure that disclosures are up front. We got a lot of disclosures. One of the amendments tonight is to put it in the MLS. We have tear-offs during closing. We have a lot of different pieces to make sure that disclosures are there. So those are my 2 main points. I don't think we have this huge uprising against these things. Council is empowered through not only the ordinance, but also through some of the amendments. Council is empowered at every step to deny these things. So with that, Councilor Johnson, I look forward to hearing what the plan was tonight that has made you so cynical. And I say that with all respect, but I'm not going to let that slide.
Well, thank you, Councilor Skilling. I am absolutely thrilled to answer you. When we have our own attorneys saying that there's no time to know if we can ban these, really? We have always had amendments on the table that we, in 10 years, Dave, that we have had an up or down vote and put on the table that night without notice. Maybe you haven't been on council long enough to understand what the history is there. And also, when you've got council saying that he wants to delay it, I don't think so. Just as you said, we are the body that makes the decisions. And last, it doesn't take a rocket science to understand that if we have a tie vote, this goes down. I have become very cynical about some things. And also, I'd also like to say Again, if anybody has accepted any money from metro districts or their representatives, either in this campaign cycle or in other campaign cycles, since we've gone to the trouble to read the conflict of interest, then that person needs to recuse themselves from this vote. Thank you for the opportunity to answer. I know we see it differently, but I'm very adamant how I feel. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the table to ban metro districts outright in the city of Lakewood. Please cast your votes. A yes would ban, a no would not. And that motion is 4-4, the nays being Paul, Skilling, LeBeer, and Harrison, and that fails.
I'm sorry,
Mr.
Mayor,
Abel.
I counted 4. I guess you're right. 4 for, 4 against.
Okay, so moving on, I'll ask the Mayor Pro Tem to please make a motion on 2021-25. And then we can go into the proposed amendments.
I move for the adoption of ordinance 2021-25 on second and final reading.
Second.
Thank you. Motion and a second. Mayor Pro Tem, I know. Do you want to pull up the amendments?
I sent them into Bruce. The staff has the amendments. If we can share the screen, is fine. Or if we're waiting on that, if anyone has any other amendments.
I would just say, as far as the amendments go, there was one in that you produced in 14.28.050, where we removed the date certain. And part of the issue that has arisen with metro districts coming forward to the body is that we wanted some sort of time frame, and they are also up against an election. So I don't know. There's a friendly amendment to that would suffice there. That was my only comment in regards to the amendments, but I thought they looked fine. Is there anybody else?
Second.
Well, no, hold on, please. No seconds. I wasn't motioning anything.
Okay, sorry.
Do we have that, Bruce? The amendments? If not, I can just read them.
We should have that available to be shared on the screen. There it is.
All right, so the amendment to 14.28.20, and these go in chronological order. The initial ordinance, or the posted ordinance, had it being adopted by the city manager unilaterally. This amendment would have it go to council for approval, and this is the model disclosure document that talks about the costs and benefits of being in the district and what that will cost you as a homeowner in the district, part of the disclosure process. 14.28.20, this is from the language that Councilor Abel had worked on with Mr. Hutchinson when they were trying to get the state to move to adopt some of our suggestions. And this is actually taken verbatim from what they had worked on. And this is, again, more disclosures that need to come in. This is to the model district report, and that's in the definition of 1428.20. And it basically, when council is looking at these on every year when they have to have the report, this adds to the existing list of things that needs to be in that report. Things like any type of IGAs, any type of litigation, and so forth. Under 1428.030, this would add subsection G. That basically says that there's nothing that gives you the right to have one of these districts. That you still have to go there. It doesn't matter if you check every perceived box and you think you've done everything correct, whatever that may mean, and you think that there's no way that you're not going to get this district. This specifically says that council always retains discretion and that there is nothing in this ordinance, nothing in our charter, and nothing in the Special District Act that entitles you to receive a district. And I think that's important. 14.28.05A, this is what I referenced earlier about adding to the MLS. As a committee, we talked a lot about this. One of the issues was that we can't make a private company add this, a certain box. You'll note that on certain MLS listings, there are things that are on there. It says, predefined fields of, it does have an HOA, how much is it? Those types of things. It does not have one for districts. But putting that aside, we should still require the seller to, in the MLS, put it in the remarks somewhere, which you can do. You've all seen on an MLS listing, the very first thing you read is, check out this house. It's the greatest house around. Look how beautiful it is, blah, blah, blah. In that, the seller or the seller's agent must put in there that there is that this is a district and that there are disclosures. On 1428.050, subsection C3D, this is to make sure that any reimbursement, any interest on that will be charged at prime, and so that there's no shenanigans with somebody charging more interest on a transaction for reimbursement. And on 1428.050E1, this again is the proposed ordinance had this going to the CMO, the city manager's office, to approve the ballot language. This would change that, and it would still go to the city manager for review, but it would eventually come to city council for approval of the proposed ballot language. So that gives a public airing of that. And if there's any issues with either the substance or the language itself, city council can act on that. The remainder of that was the strike through because it dealt with the city manager and a timeline for objecting. But under this, it would go to city council for approval. And I believe this is what Mayor Paul had mentioned about having a date certain. I had put with sufficient time to review. And I think I did that just because you never know how long it gets to get something scheduled on the agenda. And so I don't know that the 20 calendar days was enough. And that's why I replaced it with sufficient time to review, because that's usually the city manager's agenda that she sets. With that.
Can we go ahead and take that down, please? Yeah. Okay. So are there any questions to what was proposed? Mr. Dortek, can a motion be made to accept those amendments as is?
Yes, in this instance that it can, yes. Sorry, I tripped over those words, but yes, a motion can be made to accept those changes.
Okay. So is there a motion to accept those amendments?
So moved.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Motion is second. Any discussion? I would just say I appreciate Mayor Pro Tem. You've put years worth of work into this, and certainly your ward has been the most impacted. And I know you've worked super hard on these, and I'm glad to support them moving forward. So with that, please cast your votes on the slate of amendments. So that is a tie, the nays being Johnson, Abel, Springsteen, Beta. Therefore, those fail. Councilor Abel?
You're on mute. So.
I got it. I was very reluctant to vote against that because that leaves us with a very poorly written state law that we must follow. I am hoping that we can, as a body, get together and find some way to bring both sides of this issue together. State law is entirely inadequate on this issue. It is what we have been following for decades. It's dangerous. It leaves a lot of room for abuse. And I would call on council to bring this issue back and let's do something with it that makes sure we, number one, don't endorse everybody and their brother to be and sister to be a taxing authority. I don't like creating governments, which is what these things are. But I don't like the situation that state law leaves us with. So status quo is not good. Let's see how we can reach some consensus and accord on this sort of thing in the coming weeks. Thank you.
All right. Any other comments about the motion at hand? Okay. Well, I certainly can read the tea leaves, and it is unfortunate. We just had somebody say we should work on this more since we began it in 2020. And the fact of the matter is we had another comment that said we've heard from all these people. Well, the two people that we heard from don't even live in the city anymore. And folks that think they're an expert certainly are not experts in this regard. So status quo will be kept. There won't be any guardrails put forth on metro districts going forward if this fails. There are thousands of people that live in these, and not to say that there haven't been problems with some, but by and large, the majority, and they're in every ward, have been successful and have allowed people to have a home. So again, super unfortunate, and also unfortunate for our staff that continues to have to endure people who don't take their legal advice moving forward. So I will certainly be supporting this, and I'll turn over to Mayor Pro Tem Skilling.
Just to be clear, that was the vote on the amendments.
Amendments.
Yep, that was the vote on the amendments. Yep. Okay. Anything else on the 2021-25? All right, please cast your votes. And that fails 4-4, the nays being Abel, Springsteen, Beta, and Johnson.
Mr. Mayor, can I get clarification on Councilmember Abel's vote? Because his arrow was up, but it was his no arrow. Thank you, sir.
Is a no. All right. Move on to general business. Anything under general business? I actually do have a question for the legal team under general business. Is there an ability to bring this back as a motion to reconsider to the body?
There could be, but there would have to be one of the no votes being willing to bring that motion.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we'll go into councilor comments, and I'll start in Ward 1.
Thank you, Mayor. We had a great ward meeting, both virtual and live on Saturday. And Ms. Johnson recruited 2 great speakers, and I would like for her to report on how that went. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Charlie. Yes, we did have a very good council meeting. We had Paul Skuda, who is the executive director of STEP Denver, and he has a very good presentation on homeless. The bottom line is it's a very convoluted, difficult issue. There's no simple one answer, and the program that he presents does have success. It would be nice if the success rate was higher, but you're dealing with a population of people that sometimes are not really sure if they want to succeed and move on in life. And then we also had a presentation by Megan Busey, who is one of the mothers that brought Gigi's Playhouse to Colorado, and Lakewood is the first site to have that. It is for parents, even prenatal, and children that have Down syndrome. It is a support group. They offer specialized help for the children as far as PT, and it is free. I have just a couple of other things I'd like to say. You know, we as a council sometimes have difficult discussions, and I really want you to know I think highly of all of you, and I actually appreciate your viewpoints. We see some things very differently, but let us not carry that outside of the council. We are in a situation where in a world, we all need each other, really. A couple things. The stock market is extremely volatile. It went down again today substantially. It's going kind of like a roller coaster these days. Inflation is becoming a real factor. I will not be on council next year. For those of you who will, please remember that any talk of raising fees and taxes, our residents, people are in a real tight position financially. And please do anything like that with the greatest deal of thought and, in all honesty, prayer. And then I'd like to tell you about something that I learned last week at the Colorado Municipal League. One of the ladies that was a keynote speaker, she was talking about what she calls compassion fatigue. And to be honest with you, it really hit me very hard. What is compassion fatigue? It's when you are overexposed to too many things that you need to care about. And that is on every level. Personally, politically, we are all caught in an environment right now where we, because we're elected officials, must care, and we must care deeply. But what does that do? After a while, it tends to shut you down. And psychologically, mentally, physically, emotionally, sometimes we lose sight. And I just want to tell you, friends, we all need each other. And that's one way that you can overcome compassion fatigue is by getting strength from other people. Thank you.
Councilor LeBeer, Ward 2. Ward 3.
No report, Mayor.
Well, I want to just point out that, as usual, the mayor phases out when I'm going to talk to show me disrespect. I've been complaining of unequal treatment, bullying, discrimination, and misogyny for my entire tenure on council. And tonight, the mayor approved all 4 of those without any evidence. He blamed me for public comment callers he didn't like. I somehow have power over the universe to get people to call in and criticize the city. Very articulate callers, by the way. And I've been told tonight, as every night, many people were waiting in the Zoom who could not get in, were booted, could not call in. When I tried to respond to the mayor's comments, he wouldn't allow me to, but allowed the male counselor, Abel, who was also wronged tonight, to respond. And I was supposed to be able to respond during general business, and I raised my hand and I was ignored. So I again asked for an independent investigation into the discrimination and harassment that I have experienced weekly as the only counselor of color, counselor who is a woman. And I think tonight kind of said it all with respect to that. I also would like to point out something that is very, very disturbing to me that a constituent brought to my attention this week. On an Excel poll about 20 feet up, right outside their bedroom window in a residential neighborhood, 5G was rolled out. Yay! We were supposed to put protections in place for people. And here is how it sounds. I would like to, hold on just a second here. That is what this resident hears in his bedroom all day, all night. And it's rolling out into your neighborhood as we speak. This is not what we contemplated. We need to protect our residents from this. And I walked all the way down the street with my video, and it was still just as loud as when I was right underneath it. This is what I was trying to prevent on the 5G. This is what Lakewood Broadband was talking about. And this council, this staff allowed this to happen to our residents. And they are going to come to us in droves as they go insane from hearing this noise all day and all night, 24 hours a day. Castle Crown, who's in a dispute with Excel about putting their BS on their polls because the polls can't support it. And Ben, we're going to have a discussion about this because this one is on a pole in a residential neighborhood just a block away from another one off of Pearson, Arizona. Why is that happening? This is a call that this is a big problem in this city, and I tried to avoid it. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Ward 4? No. All right, Counselor Harrison.
Thank you. I wanted to thank the 4 city council candidates. We had our candidate forum this weekend. We had 4 wonderfully talented people who were there, and excellent questions were asked by the participating people. So I think that it was wonderful that we were able to have that discussion. And Ward 5 showed its true colors, and it was a very calm and wonderful discussion. So I wanted to say thank you to all those who attended. Thank you.
Great. All right. So thank you, everyone that attended Cider Days. When I walked through, I was just shocked at how many folks were out enjoying and the quite long lines to try to turn bumper crop of apples into apple cider. So I want to thank staff and all the wonderful volunteers that helped make this another success And certainly you could tell that folks wanted to get out and about and enjoy. Carmody Middle School, thanks for having me out to your chili cook-off. It was quite challenging to try to taste 41 different kinds of chili and judge them as well. But I'm glad that's once a year, and it was a great experience, but a lot of fun things going on in our schools, and want to thank all the teachers, administrators, parents, kids. Certainly not an easy time, but that was a great event. I sent council an affordable housing survey. That's part of the subgroup with the state. If you have an opportunity to please fill that out, that would be fantastic. We really need to get as much information from as many stakeholders. So the Metro mayors have been asked to send that out, as well as the Colorado Municipal League, County, CCI, County Commissioners, Inc., and then, of course, our state legislators. So that'll help the work of this group continue to move forward with recommendations for affordable housing and trying to either work off different things such as AMI or historically impacted communities, a lot of different things. Friday night went to the Sustainable Neighborhoods event and celebrated the Sustainable Neighborhoods. A lot of great things going on and those folks coming together. So thank you to Jonathan and his team and all the neighbors that did show up and to hear about all the different projects that they have put together. So that was cool. We're moving into budget, had the study session, 2 public hearings coming up. Again, I know many of those questions were asked the first round. If you continue to have questions or different things in that line of questioning or amendments, please get those in. I think you can either send them to Miss Bjorkland or certainly Miss Hodson, and that'll prepare us, I think, for our final reading on October 25th. So with that, I appreciate everybody's time and energy tonight, and we will adjourn. I think my 5G phone says we will adjourn at 8:45 p.m. Thank you.